everyone. Welcome back to Confidence Leads to Success. I have got Lora Gene here. Lora Gene started as a fashion brand with the foundations of the lifestyle concepts, which is brought together by a desire to improve the lives of the women behind the brand that make the clothes and the women that wear the clothing too. So she's all about supporting all women, is the unwavering vision of Lora Gene, with tremendous investment in social action initiatives taking place behind the scenes. So I would like to invite Lora. Hi, welcome.
Hello, hi Elif. So nice to meet you and your listeners as well. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I would like you to tell us a little bit about you and what is the story behind Lora Gene brand and 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 how it's, because you know this is all about finding the courage and the confidence to start and live the desired life as we want, as women especially. And I find your story so inspirational, and I'd love to hear it from you, how you started and where you are and how you get to here.
So basically I started somehow, I usually say in a way beyond me sort of manner, because I didn't really wanted to do fashion. I wanted to do plastic surgery. I wanted to be a doctor. My mother is a doctor, and I've been very inspired to follow her, although she wasn't really happy with any of that. So, but I did finish actually my high school was profiled with biology and chemistry, so I was preparing myself to go into the medical profession and be a plastic surgeon. That's what I wanted to do. However, life happened, and it didn't happen. I was modeling back then because, it was a good thing to do. Like it made
You're a beautiful woman. I can see why you become a model.
I wasn't really satisfied with this kind of job because I mean, it's something like you're just born with these things that people consider valuable for something, and you're so young that you don't really realize any of the modeling part. You're like 15, 16, so just these people come and say, oh, you know what, you can make this money and you can travel around the world, and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. So instead of going into medicine, I actually decided that probably for me, it will be better if I go into more of a creative industry. So I started learning, went to uni and signed up into an advertising degree. That's my first degree. And then sort of, I don't know, life happened, like I said, and I was modeling. I've always been drawing really well. So one of the makeup artists that I used to work with quite often said, you know what, you should try makeup because you always draw so well. So somehow naturally I started doing makeup. And for the next 7 years, this is like my early 20s. And for the next 7 years, I've been doing makeup quite successfully. Actually, I was one of the L'Oreal makeup artists. I did my first business with makeup. I had about 10 people working with me. We were the first agency, like a creative agency, selling makeup artists and hairdressers in the market. It was doing really well, but I don't know how customers started asking me to help with styling here and there. I was a beauty editor for a magazine for a bit, just like a guest beauty editor, more rather.
Amazing.
Yeah, all of these things in Bulgaria, where I spent about 7 years in between traveling and coming to London. And somehow naturally I started doing bits of things in the clothing because of customers asking me to do stuff. And at some point it became like a usual.
That's like you were giving what your audience wanting. You
Well,
kind of
honestly,
created a
it
business.
wasn't, I didn't have any, I was looking at much more from the business perspective rather than me feeling or being very adamant on be a designer. I still don't feel I'm like a very, um, special designer. I feel like what my forte is rather, understanding what women might want, because I don't think anyone will say I know what women want, because we are complex creatures, aren't we? So that's how naturally things started. And I started working with a small workshop. Then I sort of bought them in. So it was basically me working with, technologies, but I wouldn't really say I've employed designers much throughout the first 5 years of the brand. So I would definitely, be not be as confident as to do a collection or anything like that. And we were going for 2 or 3 years, and one of the designers, the main designer that I
At
was.
sorry to butt in, but at what point you decided that you wanted to create your own fashion line? Because there must be a, a message or something that you've
Yeah.
received that you've decided that was the time, it was right thing to do to create it. And when was this? 5 years ago, did you say?
Not really, more like 7, 8 now.
eight
More
years
like
ago,
7, 8.
something happened after
Yeah,
all your clients in beauty industry
yeah.
asking you for their styling that at one point you decided. So was it that you saw a gap in the market that as people
Well,
are asking for things?
yes and no, because basically what happened is the moment I realized that I might have something to give to this industry, and maybe there is a purpose for me to be there, because like I said, it wasn't something I wanted to do. It wasn't, I wasn't
You just
ever
found
that,
yourself in it.
yeah, in a way I wasn't, sorry, I wasn't that passionate about making clothes. I think I was more interested in, working with all these diverse women. And I've always had like a eye for aesthetics, and it was very interesting for me to like broaden up the perspective, because I was a good makeup artist. I was doing really well, and there was no reason for me to stop doing makeup. It's just at some point I was interested in the whole picture rather than just, a face or something. And I think for me, the first time when I actually realized that I might have something to offer is, like I said, when I was employing designers, and one of my designers broke her leg. But we were supposed to go to a trade show in Moscow, and then we were supposed to, we had like a full agenda of things that we needed to do. So I had to finish the collection myself, and it was the best collection we've had ever. And still, some of the pieces are my most selling pieces ever. So I don't know, whether some people will argue that designers have to be trained in a fashion school or something, but I think that in 21st century, designers have to be trained to understand the complexity of the process itself, because it's a tedious and complex process. But I do feel like, design schools are missing the real perspective of real women, because they still work in this old fashioned calendar and fashion narrative that I really do feel is not relevant anymore.
I love it.
So yeah, I do feel like, and that's where I was like, okay, maybe there's something I need to do. Maybe this is not about me and what I want. So it sort of naturally turned into this line. There was a lot of struggle. There was a lot of changes after that. And I think the biggest change when I actually completely turned the business, because you know what, I have to be honest, we did well. Like at some point we were wholesaling, and we were doing a big volume of pieces. It was a big, it was a mid-sized company doing quite well, growing. But then I got pregnant. This was precisely 5 years ago, and I somehow realized that this is scary, you know, the volumes and the way we operate and the whole process and the way we are supposed to constantly push people to work on a lower price and lower price and lower price. And this kind of got me into thinking, but how are we going to keep this up? You know, what's happening in the future? Because we were selling in a
It's just
very,
not sustainable, is it? It's just
it's
not
not,
sustainable.
yeah, exactly. You see it 10 years down the line and you're like, what if I have to grow? I have to actually multiply what I do now by at least 10 times. And this was quite scary, you know. So I transformed completely the whole business, and we started being direct to customer. And here we are. This was exactly 4 years ago, because I sort of, we never stopped, you know, I've never stopped the business or failed or sort of like put it into liquidation or anything like that. I just basically transformed it for a year and a half, two maybe. I kind of stopped wholesaling. With stop wholesaling, we would, you know, completely transform the way we operate. And this takes time, especially if you don't want to, you know, break the business or sell it and start again.
Basically, I like that. I want to take everyone's attention to this because you've started something out of necessity of people. So you've listened. So if ladies, entrepreneurs, listen to this. So Lora is in beauty industry, in successfully running a team of 10 people and moving places to places, but she was listening people's needs, and that's what gave her the idea to start this brand. And she got even bigger than she imagined it in, but then she realized that it wasn't in her principles as a person. And it's quite amazing how we notice certain things aren't in our self-beliefs, our personal beliefs, with another event happening, like being a mother probably has given you a different way of looking at life and different perspective, and how she was willing to make a change, even though that's cutting back your income. Like, people dying to go to wholesale and be brand that is wanted all over the world, and you decided, no, I don't want to be part of that. I want to be a sustainable brand who's doing things consciously. And I love, this is how I came across you on one of the groups we're both member of, and you decided to change people's perspective. And I love that about you. Can you please tell us, what do you mean by shifting people's perspective and the practical side of fashion?
Yeah. So one of the things I want to say, and it's really important, is you know, I think we need more entrepreneurs doing business for purposeful business rather than business that will make them rich. Because really, like, our world is, you know, we all know about the complexities and the issues we're facing. Climate change is the biggest danger ever out there, and we just don't need more people doing more product which is just sold for money. And having that said, I have to tell you something which is quite interesting, and I think some women that might want to start business in that industry want to consider. Having a bigger volume not necessarily reflects on a bigger net profit. It might get you better revenue, but it doesn't. And you know what they say, like, turnover is vanity, whilst you know, profit is sanity. So you need to be profitable, and you need to have a sustainable business next to a sustainable operation, because if one or the other is missing, you don't really have a business. And having that said, I'll answer your question. When I speak to like shift perspective, I mean something that is quite simple, but somehow we all fail into realizing that what we do right now and when I say we, I mean the whole industry, and especially the people involved in the sustainability movement, the advocates, the influencers, the media, the entrepreneurs, every single one of us somehow fails to address this main thing. And this is, let's see what we can do, not what we are not supposed to do. So we have these big brands which are out there, right? Like the fast fashion brands. And a lot of people are very quick to, and this is what they have been doing for 5 years. They're very quick to start jumping on them and saying, you are the bad guys, you've done this, you've done that, your business model is malicious and that and that. And this is all true, right? But if you keep on shouting at them, first of all, I don't see how anything will change. Like these are huge businesses, powerful businesses with which are also employing thousands of people, and it's not that easy. And I really ask every single person that really kind of spend their time on bashing big brands, big fast fashion brands, for that, if you're in their shoes, what you're going to do because someone shouts on social media and says that your business model is malicious. It's not an easy, it is a malicious business model, but the whole system we live in is malicious. So you can't just address one or the other. And that's what I mean by shift perspective. That's what we need to do. We don't need more brands. We need better brands. We don't need more entrepreneurs making more product that's going to pollute the environment. We need better entrepreneurs which are doing products which are not polluting the environment, and so on and so on and so on. My point is, instead of just keep on saying we don't need something or we can't do something, maybe let's just shift and see what we can do. Pretty much the same perspective for sustainable brands. We constantly sit in this sort of pedestal and say, oh, but we are sustainable, we're not going to do sales, we're not going to do this, we're not going to discount our product, we're not going to touch a fabric which is not 100% seaweed which is recycled from these oceans. This is also a very wrong perspective, in my opinion, because there are so much things we can do, and there's so many things we can do, and we need to start from somewhere. And a lot of people are starting from somewhere, even including the big brands. So what I'm saying is, okay, let's not praise them for what they do, because most of the time we talk slave labor, we were talking about, very bad things and malicious practices. But let's realize that these people have hundreds of people depending on them to make this business work. And there is no easy solution for those people. And it's not just saying, oh, what about the jobs? Yeah, what about the jobs? They'll find something else. But if you're a technician working for a factory that's been supplying Inditex for 20 years, basically someone on Instagram is coming and saying, oh, you know what, you can change jobs, it's fine. I find this very audacious, and I don't think it should be translated in that way. I don't think people have the right to say who should do what.
So if we were to give one advice, the one thing our listeners could do to help this race, this dilemma, I would call it, because I agree with you. I mean, I get these questions. I'm a fashion designer myself. I have a boutique selling beautiful clothes. Majority of my products are made in the UK, and the other part is made in Turkey in a very fair traded factory. I know exactly where products are made, so there is no exploitation in the supply chain. I know that because I've been there, so I feel like I am bringing onto table a product that is not exploiting anybody, but it is still part of fast fashion, my product. So I get what you're saying, and I hear you. So when we say, like, when people buy cheaper products, because I get these questions like, oh, you could get that similar blazer in a high street brand, I won't name them, much cheaper. And I don't know what to answer those people, because there is a lower price for them to sell is negotiating with their production line back in India or back in China, back in Turkey. I don't know where they're made, or Bangladesh.
Yeah.
But I can't, I hear what you're saying. I can't tell people to stop shopping there, because
Yeah.
then those people who are getting an income and living from these jobs. So how could we as individuals make a difference doing one thing? What could be that? What do you think as someone who's in the business?
That's a I have to admit that this is a very complex question, because first of all, I'm someone that you would never hear me bashing on customers and saying it's their fault. Business is what makes practice. Business is what's supposed to, we as businesses are what create value. And we need to find a way to create value, not based on exploitation or, a disrespect of human labor. Quite the opposite. It's our job. It's not customer's job. And I very often also argue, because a lot of people would jump here and say, no, we need regulations. You can't regulate a free market. We live
No.
in the conditions of a liberalized, free, capitalistic market. You can't impose regulations on businesses, because it's not how it works. But what I would probably say to people, this is very, very much of a business talk, but what I would probably say to people is that, for me, the most important thing is think about, whether this price is sensible, because most of the times, it's not sensible. It's really not sensible. And you can see that someone down the line paid for this to be so cheap. And this is not valid just for clothes. It's valid for many other products. So I would say, always think about how is it possible to get a carpet on a price of a jumper, or vice versa. And yes, there are tiers in the market, and there are different, bubbles that people can buy into. But especially when it comes to fast fashion, I would probably say is, if you don't have a choice, if your income is, limited, and you just don't find the product anywhere else, I wouldn't be so harsh to judge anyone by it, But what I would probably say is, always think about how do they make and achieve this price? Because if you imagine the people behind, and how malicious and unfair this is to them, then what's going to happen is you probably cut back on it by yourself and go and choose someone better. Because like I said, I don't think we should stop buying, or you should say to people, don't go buy this blazer in Zara or something. I think what we should say to people constantly is to buy better product, because better products are designed to last better. So therefore they're sustainable by nature,
So
and
the
these are all.
sustainability factor is very important. That's what you're saying, basically. So when you're buying, buy it consciously, to think, how long will this last
Yep.
for me, and how it was made, and was it really priced fairly, and if everybody along the line, the supply chain, has been paid fairly.
And
So
how much I'm going to wear it. That's really important, because, the overconsumption problem is not a problem coming from, it's a problem of the middle class, let's face it. It's the problem of people who can afford to buy more clothes. It's not a problem of, adversity or lack of enough choices. It's quite the opposite, actually. And we are living in a country that's proven that, we consume the most in the European continent. Like, you come from Turkey, I come from Bulgaria. We know how that works. We don't have the same habits. We don't have the same understanding, Like in Bulgaria, people don't throw out clothes. They don't until it's completely ripped. They don't. Or they just give it to the next person, or they just, give it to, and I mean, in general, the consumption in developing countries is tens of times less than in developed countries.
I know, I hear you. I come from a family of the same, and we used to make our clothes. That's how I got into making and learn how to become a dressmaker myself, by making. And wearing till its last leg, basically, or pass it on to the family. But I think the modern world is making that very hard for people. And as someone who's in the fashion industry myself, it's it's I've had this argument with a discussion with one of my clients, and she was saying, "Yeah, but if you say so, if you say everybody should buy less and quality, how you're supposed to make enough sales to make a living from it?" It was a very good question. Very good
But you know
question.
what? I do have a very straight answer to that. So the problem is that right now the whole, you know, you don't need to sell as much because you can see the disbalance of, someone that like a big fast fashion brand making billions and someone in the middle making, a very healthy profit, which is very healthy for the business, and they have a very healthy margins. This is basically the argument of quality over quantity. And you know what? Maybe 100 years ago, the earth and the human population could have coped with that levels of consumption. Right now, we can't. And this is not my opinion. It's a scientific fact, So we can't keep on consuming as much. And, there's a very straightforward answer to this question. You just basically make your money from quality. You don't make it from quantity. So this is why a lot of people will argue it's a malicious business model. It is a malicious business model because it's based on, the good old economic term of enjoying. That's how it's put in the books, in the any book for economic studies you open, it will say enjoy economies of scale. And we need to revert back from that. We need to change the way we perceive how economy functions, because we can't afford to have that economies of scale enjoyment kind of thing,
Especially when fashion is
You just
really
can't. Yeah.
damaging the environment.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not the same for many industries. You can enjoy economies of scale, for instance.
Honestly, some people who are listening to our conversation right now will probably think these two fashion business owners, why do they actually talk about this? They should be pushing people to buy more, but we're going, no, buy less,
Yeah.
buy quality, buy consciously. Buying more doesn't make you look richer, and it's not a status positioning. It's not.
Right.
We are in a business, and we are trying to disrupt the industry with telling you to buy consciously, buy quality over quantity, and less is more, because you're going to have a greener world and children with running drinkable water if you stop buying too much, more than you need, and not
Exactly.
quality.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, we could talk forever. It's been such pleasure having you, Laura. Maybe we need to do the second part of this.
Yeah, there is so much to say, but if there is one thing I want to leave with people is, you know what, just forget about the whole terminology and just forget about this whole conversations happening on Instagram constantly, and you need to reply to that and this and whatever, and you need to fit. Just really try and be very sensible with the clothes you're buying, and always think about the people making them. Because if there is one thing I want to translate to people, is that clothing making has been turned into this, simple, easy thing. And it's not. It's exactly the opposite. It's very complex. It's very hard. It's a craft, and it takes years for people to train. So just respect that. And if you respect that, naturally everything else will fall into place. Because a craftsman's person making garments is trained precisely as a business person. Same years, same level of complexity. It's just one is, handwork that requires for you to understand the whole process. The other one is more of a brain work. So we are all kind of, connected in that, and nothing is